Hi, my name is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and today I'm going to be showing you how to cover cushions and how to create new arm covers for a rocking chair. This has just a few things wrong with it, but first I'm going to wash the existing cushions and we can get on from there. I'm going to remove this seat pad, which is quite easy. It's a case of removing the staples that are here. I don't think I can save this. I could probably put it in the washing machine and get the stains out, but I'm not going to bother. Now I'm just going to wipe all of this down with Lysol and see if there's anything I need to tighten up before I really get into recovering this. Chenille with big flowers on, so I think it will work out fine. And that seems to be up, that seems to be down, and that seems to be equal. So I have to cut it out sideways. I'm going to pop that up there. This will fit here. Pop that there and see what the pattern looks like. Such a big pattern, it doesn't have to be centered. So the overall width that I need is 24. I'm going to make it 26. I'm going to fold that over, make it even to that side, make that even to this side. Having shaken the fabric out, I found that there's a pattern here and there, so I'm going to use that to be my line. It's a little bit wider than I was going to do it, but that's better. Straight across all the way to the end. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that in half again widthways and cut it again. Now what I do need to do is make sure that I get both of the pieces cut out of the right area that I've allocated. Just cut that straight across. Got one set done. My seat will come out of here, and yes it does, good. Make sure those are folded in for now, then face down with the salvages at the top. There's my seam. I'm going to bring the back up to the front and then pin, and I'm going to do that all the way around. The back up first, the front down. And this is how you make a cover for one of these gliders. I'm going to kind of pull it out slightly. Now the back is sometimes bigger than the front, so just let it fold in where it wants to. Just try to make it as even as possible. And if it gaps like that, don't worry, it will all come in when it's sewn. Over the years I've discovered that if I do it this way, my patterns are usually a little bit more in line with what I want them to look like. I'm just going to pin part of the way along the back, just to give me some idea of where the back is going to go. Pull it tight against itself so it's flat, and then put a couple of pins this end too. And now I'm going to work my way around. Once you're happy with the placement of all of your pins, roughly cut to about a good inch, 2.5 to 3 centimeters outside my pins, like this, all the way around. And if you're a little bit shy, don't worry too much, because I like to make sure that both sides are symmetrical, is to very carefully remove and replace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the top pin. So the easiest way to do it is through the top like that. So there's my replacement pin and there's my top pin. And then I'm going to just replace my top pin back where I took it from. And I'm going to do that all the way around. It's a little bit slow, but it's often worth the effort. Also, as you go around, make nicks like you would in dressmaking. So I'm going to put one there because I'm going into this corner, and I'm going to do a couple more. And I usually try to fold along a pin like that because it's more secure. So there's my pin and there's my mark. Now you will notice on this corner that there is actually a pleat, which I have not bothered putting in. I just curved everything around, and I shouldn't need to put the pleat in at all. Once you've done that, separate them. The top of the fabric is the one that's upside down and facing down, and all you need to do is just line up the outside edges where the pins are, just to make sure that they are even, and they look pretty even to me. This is when you can straighten up any lines that go up and down and you don't think they should. See, it goes in that far but here, so I'm going to half the distance, which means I'm going to roll that out to there, and I'm going to repin in on one side and out on the other so that it's more even, and the same here. It's maybe a couple of millimeters, so it's really not a huge difference that I'm making. I'm just trying to make that line nice and smooth. You could do this with a marker pen if you wanted. I'm going to just put another pin in there so it's a smooth line. So it should be more or less even on the front, and I'm happy with the way that looks. The sides were even and the back. Now I'm not going to do the same with this. All I'm going to do is pop this back down. This was the underside, so let's see what's going on here. I don't think there's much I can do about that. I'm going to just have to put it in because that's the way it rolled. But the top I'm more concerned about keeping as even as possible. So actually I'm going to leave these ones here, and I'm going to pull these in just a wee bit. Pop this back on top, face down. As I say, they're not always that even to each other. That's the way I cut it. I'm not going to change it. And now I'm going to do the same with the back cushion. Now the only difference is I've got to work out where the tabs go, and I will do that after I've got the seat cushion made up, because I might be altering those positions too. See, that's not very well cut. And again, where the pins are, just fold across and put your marks like you would if you were doing dressmaking. You only need a few. It's just really round the corners so that you can get the corners to roll where you want them to. So you might want 2 or 3 along the back there on that side, and the same as you go round onto the other side. And my advice to you is don't make them absolutely even to each other, because if you're doing more than one and you do that, you sometimes get mixed up as to which part goes where. And again, I'll start unpinning just to make sure that the front is where I want it to be. Starting on the seat, I'm going to just put the pieces together and start sewing from the back for about 3, maybe 4 inches in from the end. Make sure everything lines up, and I'm going to slide that under to about 1/2 inch from the outside edge. Go forward, reverse a couple of stitches, and then back forward to the first corner, which is about here, if I'm to follow this line up. At the first corner, and by the way, I've got this on about a 3. A 3.5 will be fine. First corner, my needle's down, I've lined my first notches up, put my foot down and start sewing towards the first pin. About centre should be fine. I'm coming up to the second set of notches that I cut out. I'm going to make sure that those are pulled equally together and aim for the centre here. And if they walk a little bit, just pull from the underneath fabric only and work forward, removing the pins as you go. I took these apart and put the pins in separately because I wanted to make sure that both sides of the top were even, but I didn't really need to. Now here the notch is slightly different, is pulled forward, so I'm going to pull it back so it lines up. It's sometimes the bottom and the top fabrics are not equal to each other. Just pull when necessary. And here again, I'm going to have to pull the top one against the bottom one, like that, to make sure that this notch and this notch match up. And there's a little square part there, so I'm going to pull that out to the side so they match there as I go round. Now, if you've done it carefully, there's a little, I've got a little ridge here and one there. I'm going to line those up too. Every little nick has to mean something when you're doing this. That's why it's very important to pull the fabrics together. And if you want to mark these with a fabric pen where each of the pins goes, that's perfectly, actually that's quite a good idea. Whether you use chalk or a fabric pen, that's up to you. I mean, I've been doing this job for a long time, so I kind of whiz round. My next set of nicks are a little way along, so I'm going to pinch those together and pull the fabric so that it runs even. Just wriggle them against each other if necessary. And as I get closer, I double check that everything's going to run on equally. There we are. There's the two nicks coming into view, and they are still equal. And here I've got a corner piece and a corner piece, so I'm going to make sure those line up too. And here again I've got a straight piece and a straight piece, so I'm going to make sure those line up. And then I have two nicks quite close together, one there, one there. So I'm going to make sure that that nick and that nick match up. Now the next nick is a little way up, so I'm going to make sure I hold those two pieces together like that and pull both of the fabrics against each other too, removing the pins all the way along. As I come to the back, pull the top and the bottom fabrics against each other so that those two nicks line up, and then on up to the top. Now I did cut the back slightly short for some reason, not sure why. So when I come to the top, I've got to just make sure that I keep that in mind as I go around the corner. So I need to come to about here to make sure that everything's kept in place. Sometimes your fabrics, as you cut them, don't always line up. And I'm just going to sew. See, it does come back out, so that's good. Pulling the back, the bottom and the top away from each other so that it does even out. There we go, like that. And I'm just going to be sewing to about here, which is about 3 or 4 inches in, or about 5 to 6 centimeters, and then reverse. When you've done the corners, just cut at an angle up towards the outside of your stitching, like that, on both sides at the back. As you go around these corners, just cut like you would if you were doing dressmaking, up to the stitches but not across the stitches, like that, all the way. This helps the fabric ease round the lumps and bumps on the chair seat. And start just before the fabric starts pulling out, and just into where the fabric goes straight on the front, and then repeat on the other side. On the corners at the back, before I poke it all through, is I'm going to sew across at a right angle here. What you need to do is get the seam on the side and the seam on the back to run together. Let me put a pin on the top seam and the bottom. There we go. And this is the same on the other side. And this gives you a boxed look on the back corner. And say I've only put the pins in to hold it for a short while. It's about 3/4 of an inch in from the end. So I'm just going to go straight down and then back, all the way across, and the same forward and back. And then I'm going to do the same with the second corner. Right, now that I've done that, I'm going to poke the corners through, and the second one here, like that, and pull all that way through. I'm going to fold the cushion in half, like this, and slide it in to its new cushion like this, into the front corner first, like that, on both sides. Ease the backs into place as well, and there they go. Then I fold the cushion the other way, like that, just to make sure everything is into place. Something I need to do first before I put anything else in is to measure this, and that's 18.5 inches by 17. This is taupe denim. I'm going to cut this to 19.5 by 18. All I'm going to do is fold this over by about 1/4 of an inch all the way along, all 4 sides. So I'm just going to cut some of this back because I don't want it all bulky. Double fold it over again. Put the second side down. As I say, it's rough. I'm not going to be too precise on this. Won't matter. This will stretch and cover what I need it to. And I'm going to staple it into the hem. So I've done both sides, and now I'm going to do the back, and then I'm just going to pull it all forward and do the front edge too. Right, now that that's in place, I'm going to just put the seat cushion into place too. Now along the back, I'm going to just put a pin here, so that's the outside of that, and then just there for the other side, and I'm going to put another pair over here, and I know that my ties have to go somewhere in here. Just place this into position, and it's still unsewn, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where I want the ties to go on the back on both sides, so that the ties go around the top here. Now when I picked this up, the ties are actually here, and I noticed that the top of the back kind of slumped forward, and I really dislike that. I need to make ties for the seat cushion and for the back cushion, so I'm going to actually use up some of the scrap fabric. I'm going to cut this into 3-inch widths all the way up. Try to make them even. It makes the makeup process a lot easier, especially if they're not wider. I mean, if it's a little bit narrower like there, that's not going to be a problem. But if it's wider, it kind of knocks them out slightly. Okay, when it's got a little bit of fluff on it like this, I actually cut the strands off just inside, so it all keeps together. Now the long ones, I start in the middle and just roll that over like that, and that like that into the center, and then fold it on over. Now for the shorter ones, I just start at the end and do the same thing. Just roll it over like this and fold them in. Now the reason I don't start on the long ones at the right at the end is because of the bulk. I've noticed that trying to start off sewing with all this bulk like this is causes more problems than anything else, and that is why I start in the middle, or somewhere along the middle. It doesn't have to be exact. Popped under. There's a ridge here, and not the outside ridge, but this ridge here that I'm going to follow, and I'm just gonna start as before. When I get towards the end, I'm just going to fold the fabric under like that, from one corner to the other. Fold that one side in so it's nice and sealed, and the same with the other side. Just fold all of that in, and you'll find that it's easier to sew it into place when you get to the top. If you need to wriggle anything, do so. Put my needle down, sew out to that corner, and then reverse, pop it onto the other side, and do it again. So do exactly the same with the shorter ones. Just remove the seat back, removing the pins from one side and just keeping them on the top side like this. If I feel that there's more difference on one side of a pillow or cushion than the other, then I'll do both sides. It's a lot faster if it's only one. And all the marks are in there. That's very important. So this is my front. I'm just going to fold it over in half, make sure that it's as symmetrical as I can make it. If I have to make any alterations, this is where it needs to be. On the back, I do need to make sure that the ties, where the ties are going to go, is even. And I can feel my pins here, and I can here just move this tie a little bit forward. I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to put these two pins further back, and they should be more or less on top of each other.
I've divided my tie in half, which I'm going to place midway between the two pins that marked the chair rail, and I'm just going to start on one side. I'm going to go up towards the top pin, drop my needle, I'm going to remove my pin, and I'm going to go at right angles from the side of the tie, so it goes down. It's only a few stitches. Drop my needle, and then I'm going to go back down the other side towards my other pin, my marker pin. Just make sure you're on the tie till you get to the other pin. Remove the pin. The needle is down, and then I'm just going to go right angles again across. Hope you can see that from that angle to where I started. Drop the needle down, and then I'm going to go diagonally across to this corner here. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's going to be hidden. Drop the needle down, go across the top again, diagonally across to the bottom there, and then again just across, right angles at the bottom where we went earlier. And I like to just reverse on that bottom one. As with the seat cushion, I'm putting the base down first and the front on top, right sides together. Leaving my needle down, lifting the foot, I'm going to pull my fabric round and work up my first side. Now we're coming to the bias, so it's going to make a bit of a difference here. I'll put my nicks together, and I'm trying to pull in the bigger back than the smaller front. Pull my tie down so it doesn't buckle the fabric too much. Any alterations I made to the front will come into the back. Always put the larger fabric on the bottom. The dog teeth tend to pull it through. As before, I'm just going to cut the corner off and make little boxed corners. So you can actually trim all of this back to about 1 centimetre, half an inch, from the seam. Then you've got less bulk going in. And remember to put your little nicks in and don't go across. Nip these ties off, roll it. Here's my ties for the back, and I'm going to just slip that into its new cover. Shake this around a bit until it all fits in. I'm just going to fold that over and just pin it all the way along as evenly as I can. Pop this underneath the foot, which is a little bit more awkward than it looks. Well, actually it's very awkward. So anyway, here we go. It's under. I'm going to keep my two folds together. So forward and then reverse, just to catch it, and then all the way across. And if necessary, pull the top, because you kind of want to catch some of the slack from the back into it. Enough to gap if I let it loose, so we'll just pull that tight. When we get to the end, just do a little reverse. I marked earlier with 2 pins either side of the poles where the ties had to go.
So now I'm going to pop the ties together like this. I'm just going to roll them slightly apart so they're not on top of each other, and like that. And I'm just going to pin them into place. I usually put the seams on the outside because if you look here, they're not always even. All I'm going to do is just sew along the outer edge of the cushion and sew those into place. I don't need to double stitch or... Now do the same on this side. Now, as before, roll this one up and this one down and pin it into place. Make sure that the inside cushion is not in the way. And then just like the back seat cushion, I'm just going to sew all the way across. Now this one's going to be awkward because I've got a whole foam cushion. If this doesn't go in evenly, I won't worry. It's right behind everything. It's right at the back of the chair. It's under, it's hidden. And sometimes you just have to let things go. So reverse and then move your way forward. Make sure your ties are in place. Now when you do the ties, just make sure you go reverse all the way back over them. And now come to the other ties. I'm just going to make sure that they're doing the same thing as the first set. As before, just reverse all the way across. I've knotted the seat cushion into place. I'll just pop that on for now. There weren't any arms on here, so all I've done is I've popped this in as tight as I can, mark here, and then fold this over and make it level with the bottom here, so, or as close to. Now the original width that I marked out for the width of the arms was just under 12 inches, and this is only 22, so I'm going to make that 11 there and there. Height 12.5, so I'm going to make that 12.5 on this side too. So now all I've got to do is cut that out, and I've got, as I showed you in a previous video about cutting foam, I've got my electric. I'm just going to pop that on the line I want to cut and just go straight down. I put it by the edge of the table so that it makes it firm. We're going to have to shape the foam, so I'm going to divide the base in half. Try to get it as straight as you can. Because it's quite thin, it might be a little bit wobbly. So there we go. If I place my knife from the middle up at an angle, I want it as long as possible. So I'm going to put my mark about there. Mark across here. I'm going to dissect that too. All I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the bottom here with the top there, and as carefully as I can I'm just going to cut down at that angle. Might not be perfect, but it should work. Now it's not perfect, but that's close enough. I'll do the same on the second one. So those are our two arms. The foam that I just cut was 11 by 13, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them 13 by 15. I really don't know how big I'm going to need them, so I'd much rather cut them too big and then sew them into shape. When you're making patterns up, you have to be a little bit creative. Just cut them down 2 more lengths. And this is my second piece. Now I'm just going to mark these down for the bottom of each pair. This tells me that the pile on both of these is going that way. This is the bottom. So I'm matching up the bottoms of both of them. I've got one long length, one short length. And I'm going to sew it in place 11 inches up from the base. On both sets. I'm going to set the foot down, and I'm literally foot width away from the edge, so it's got like 1/4 of an inch seam to it. Make sure you stabilize it by reversing and then go straight down. When you get to about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom edge,
leave the needle down and pick the foot up and go along the bottom edge. Just make sure that everything's running flat. Come to the edge, needle down, foot up. Now this one's going to be scanned on there, but I'm not going to worry too much because I'm actually going to be top stitching it. Foot down, and then when I get to the pin, marking the 11-inch mark, I'm going to remove it. Forward, reverse. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in like I did before towards the stitching on the corner. I'm going to just turn it the right way around. Now when you get to the corners, just wriggle them and they should come out quite sharp. Now I'm going to top stitch it. That involves me rolling the fabric so both seams are equal. There's my seam, and then I'm going to roll it out so that's equal like that, and I'm going to start about 2 inches this side of that opening, and the reason is I'm going to have to poke it all the way back on to the wrong side and sew it into place. Pop that underneath. I'm going to run this not on the outside, but there's like a groove or a mark running on the inside of my foot. I'm going to just line it up with that. Try to keep it even. So work a little way, pull it. When you get to the corner, needle down, foot up. There's my opening. So I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to reverse as well. Now I don't want the foam going all the way to the bottom because there's a bar on the side of the chair which you'll see. So I'm going to give myself about maybe 2 inches, certainly 1.5 inches from here to where I'm going to sew, and I'm going to just sew in a straight line across the bottom, reverse and forward, all the way across. For this project I'm using the heavy duty snaps, maybe called poppers in other countries, and it's by Dritz. They're the ones that I found. There's 7 in this size packet, and I actually only need to have 5 because there's 2 at the bottom here and 3 at the top, which is usually what they have on these chairs. Now when you are replacing the arms on these, and I'm going to say note to self, although they are similar in size, they're actually slightly different in shape, and I have very carefully popped the new popper on top, or the new snap on top, only to discover I couldn't take it off. So it's always a good idea just to replace all the old ones with new ones. It's not a hard job, it's just a little bit time consuming, and I've actually had to use a watchmaker's screwdriver because I couldn't find a Phillips head small enough for this particular project. Although saying that, I'm actually going to use a Phillips head, put this one in because I had to change the screw to go into this one. I lost the other one due to my daftness. And just remember to throw the ones that you don't want away. The first thing we need to do is put the arm through and work out where we want the poppers to go. They go in about 1/2 inch from the outside edge and up, so that's quite easy to work out. Using my scissors, I'm going to fold that over. I am going to make a small nick, and when I say small, I really mean small, just on one side. Fold it the other way, and then on the other side you can feel where it went through. Just repeat. It's barely visible. The longer piece goes on the inside and the shorter piece on the outside. So I'm going to put the decorative back on, and I'm going to push it all the way through like that, so you can hopefully see it. I'm going to put the cup to go over here, over it like that, so it pushes through. And with my handy dandy gadget, I'm going to slip the back into there, and holding everything in place, carefully lower that on top, and I'm going to crunch it like that into place. And there we have our popper or our snap. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side to match. Okay, this is the outside. The outside is the shorter side, so I'm going to pop this narrow piece all the way down to the bottom, force it into place. I'll do one and then I'll transfer the information onto the other one. Really push that down to the bottom and out to the sides. If you look at the side here, it's narrow here and it slowly bulges out. Pop that through there. I'm going to snap that onto its new holders. Okay, now fitting this on is a little bit awkward. So I've got the short side which goes to the outside, and I'm going to pull this really tight. The first two marks are going to be on either side of this piece of wood. One there and one there. They're not even 1/4 of an inch, they're little cuts like that, and they're straight cuts. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. Pull it up tight. See the corner here? So I'm going to go one there and one there. They don't have to be exact, but as close as you can. This also needs to be pulled into place. So I'm going to pull the top one round as hard as I can, and I am going to hold it with my hand, and I'm going to have to guess where these two marks are, but basically they also have to line up. I think that's on the outside edge, it's pretty close. And this one, if I push down, I can feel either side of the wood band or the wooden arm. Do the same there. Pull it very hard to the back. Pull it on this part. And there again, do the same. Little clip there. And a little clip there. Remove the cushion from its case. So we put them right sides together. We've got the long pieces in this case at the front and the short ones at the back. Make sure the bottom side is measured equally and work upwards. Now the first set of cuts are here. 1, 2. The other thing you need to do is find the center between those 2 points. It's very important. So I'm just going to nick a little nick, not too deep, otherwise it might go into where you're sewing. So there we are, we've got that side done. Flip it over and we'll do the other side, the other long side. Here again, mark your distances like that. Mark the centers. Then we're going to do exactly the same for the back. So we'll put the front facing down, front inside arm facing down, and the back inside arms together. Flip that back, and again transfer the marks onto it. These marks are going to come in handy in a minute. And then turn the chair covers back inside out. First of all, we're going to line up the center and pin it. Then we're going to take the corner of the chair to the corner of the chair, hold it in place, and the fabric that's left here, this loopy piece, just fold it back to the corner clip and pin it into place. Now the loop here, don't worry about it, we're going to push that down and make 2 little pleats. On the other side, here is our corner chair mark, which we're going to pop there, and then we're just going to hook back a little bit like we had on the front, just maybe about the same length. Pin that into place,
And here again we have a little bit of a loop that's going to be pushed into place as we sew. And then we are going to pin to the end of the underside, the shorter side. Now we're going to repeat on the other side of the same chair cover. Here again, our outside and our outside together, and here again just pop a little bit underneath or over the top. You want it over the top, not underneath, and pin to the end of the underside, which is shorter. Now we're going to pull the arm cap tight like that across the top, and we're going to fold the extra fabric that we don't want over the top, and here we have a straight line. And now I'm just going to cut. I'm not going to pull, I'm just going to cut all the way to this end. Okay, popping the fabric back underneath the foot, I'm going to sew up towards the first set of pleats. Push into place the middle pleat to go between the end of the first pleat and the centre mark. Go across where the centre mark is. As I'm coming towards the back pleat, I'm just going to move that pin too and line it up with the side of the fabric and sew. When I get towards the corner, I'm going to drop the needle down, picking the foot up, turning the fabric around. Now pull the fabric back a little bit, just a wee tad, and then sew about 1 to 2 inches or 2 to 4 centimeters across the back end. Reverse. Now on the other side, we're going to start on the back side here. So about 1 to 2 inches or 2 to 4 centimeters from this side seam to the corner, outside corner, and when you get there, it should be about 1/4 of an inch from the outside edge. Drop your needle down again, pick your foot up and turn everything into place. Fold it up and down and sew. So you've got the outside nicks together. Now before the centre mark, there's this piece of fabric that's popping up. Just push down in the centre. It should make 2 little pleats, one either side. So right across it, across the centre mark, sew across the second pleat, just sew along that stitch line to hold everything into place. Take your corner to about 1/8 of an inch or 2 millimeters from the edge, and then turn the whole thing the right way round. Now we work with the flat side underneath, you know, the shorter side underneath, and all the ridges, ripples and everything else on top. There's the outside where I finished sewing. Pop that into place, and underneath the foot, do forward and back. You don't want that undoing. Carry on sewing to the corner. Pop your needle into place, pick the foot up. Now, we are going to kind of straighten these out a little bit and push back the fabric and let it all roll into place, because we want to hold all of the pleats and everything where they need to be. One side of the chair is a little bit tighter than the other side, and that's quite normal. That's usually the back. Do the over sewing until you get to the previous over sewing. Let it go over about 1 inch, a couple of centimeters. And here again on the front side of this, I'm going to pop it where the original sewing was for the top stitching. This kind of needs a little bit more working on it because there's a few more pleats in it. Just let the pleats tell you where they need to line up. And the last pleat, you need to sometimes pull the fabric forward from the back. Into the corner, leave your needle down, pick your foot up and turn. And again, just stitch towards where you stop sewing and reverse. The shorter length is the back of the chair arm, and the rippled is the front side. Fold that in half and pop it into place. Push this down into the corners and the base of the arm cover. That is
where it needs to be, hard in there. And then you pull, you roll with your hand back on the back, and you do the same on the front till it all comes to the back end here. I'm going to let that ripple over the top there like that. I'm going to roll my fabric together by about 1/4 of an inch both front and back and pin it into place. There and there, again in the centre. If I pull it, it should just roll like that. Having got that pinned into place, I'm going to just pop the fabric underneath and line up my top stitching again here. I'm going to sew forward over the top, reverse it just a little bit, and hopefully everything will hold firm. When you get to the end, just go over the original top stitching, reverse and out. To finish off, all we need to do is pop the new outside arm onto the snaps and pull it tight, really tight over the top like that, because that pulls all of this fabric into place, and the foam kind of finds its own place in there. Right, the first popper I'm going to put on the top is here. It's a bit like the nicks that we did on the bottom there, on one side, and then usually I put my finger hard on there and find it on the other side like that. As before, pushing from the outside all the way through, and hopefully it'll go through. If not, it just means I didn't cut where I thought I had, and pop it in place. There we are, there's that one. So I'm going to push the pieces over, and I'm going to pull towards the back, get the back one in, and that's more or less the same place. Usually you've got an existing cover to use for everything. If you don't have an existing cover, you have to use your talents and make one. So I'm hoping this all works out. And then all we've got is the middle here. I'm going to undo the front so it's easier to get to. You could put a pin mark in where the centre is. You know, that's entirely up to you how you mark these. And I have in the past put the wrong thing on, so they've been matching. And because it's this kind of thing, I've had to start all over again. So we all do crazy things. Just, if you need to, you can separate all the parts out and they all fit on. Might not be the best, but it certainly will work for the project. Now I'm going to be using these buttons. They have teeth on the back like that. I have used the straight buttons in the past, but I find that sometimes in upholstery they just pull out. I'm going to show you how to make up some buttons. I usually pop the button on the back like that, and then I cut around it maybe about 1/2 inch to 1 centimetre. There is a pattern you could use, I just never use it. So there's my rough cut. Pull the fabric over, and I actually use a pin. I say east to west, north to south, but basically it's across the warp or the weft threads like that. So if you can see the threads go that way. So that's my first side, and I do that, I just catch them underneath and pull them in as tight as I can, and then I go north and south, and that usually holds it quite firm. It makes it look a bit boxy like that. Fold the corners over, and some fabric really pulls in and others does, and then all you got to do is pinch that into the button and it holds. I'm just going to continue with the others. I'm not sure if you remember, but when I first started this project, the original seat cover has a sewn line like an arc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of back, which is about 12 inches. So I'm going to put my first button here. Now I'm going to use this. This is a nylon thread. So I'm going to cut 3 lengths of the same. Makes it easier then. Fold it in half and poke the two ends through there and then through here, so it's caught like that. It's not going anywhere. Now I have a long needle here. You can use a shorter one. They come in shorter lengths. There's usually a packet of 6 needles of varying sizes. I'm going to pop that through just like that, all the way through to the other side. Now I'm just going to lift up the whole seat and minding my fingers and push it all the way through, like hopefully that's midway too. Just double check. If it's not midway, then I'll take it back through, but it should be. There we are, 12 inches. Perfect. And then on the other side you do the same. You poke both of the threads through like that. You separate them like this and take them to the other side, pulling relatively tight, and then just put a couple of knots in just to hold it there. The next button's ready to go. So with my needle and my measuring tape, I'm going to measure 5 inches from the center to the center of the next one, and I'm going to go up at a slight angle, and again I'm just going to pop that straight down there. I'm going to push that on all the way through, put my hand underneath, but like that, so it doesn't go through my fingers. I can assure you it hurts when it goes through your fingers. And then I'm just going to pull that back through like I did on the other one. Pull it through, pull it tight, separate them, and again knot them off on the other side. I usually do 2 on one side and then pull it round and do 2 on the other and cut it off. Now with the last button, you might want to measure from the top down, which is 9 inches, and down again. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have gained some insight on how to recover a rocking chair or a glider. Don't be put off if you have to replace new arms or any of the new cushions if you had to do that, or even the hardware. I think this has turned into quite a valuable project for you to watch. The overall cost for doing this project was actually quite minimal. If you enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe, please hit the bell button and give me a couple of thumbs up and see how I'm doing. Actually, I'm very excited because one of my videos has recently attained just over 100 views, and that's my how to lengthen curtains video. So thank you for your support. Look forward to seeing you next time. Ciao.